Hello and welcome back to the GorillaBiker, and today we're going to be talking about what the best motorcycle is that you can buy. I get asked this question a lot, like best beginner bike, best bike for tall rider, and spoiler alert, if you're new here, I'm tall. I'm 6'7" or 200 centimeters tall, and I am probably on the heavier than average size, heavier than average weight, we'll say. So you know, people of my size and weight always ask questions, and people just ask in general. So we're going to go through what I think makes a motorcycle the best, and it is going to depend on your use case. So we'll break that down first and foremost. So I think a lot of people, when they ask this question, haven't really clearly defined in their own head what they want a bike for. And I think that's the first thing you need to do, and we'll go into why in a sec. But you know, for me, this bike is one of my favorite bikes ever made, because it's in a classic style. It looks great, still relatively fast, does a lot of things you want a bike to do, but at the same time it's not particularly amazing at anything, and that is a compromise I was very aware of and okay with going into buying it. And that's something that you as a person need to kind of sit down, think through what you want a bike for. When and if you get one, my god, these people are basically idling around these corners. It's actually difficult to ride this slow. Oh, and they can't even keep to their side of the road. Phenomenal drivers around here, just phenomenal. But yeah, that's something that you really have to be honest with yourself too, you know. I mean, back when I lived in Ireland and commuted, you know, 20-30 minutes a day through heavy traffic, the FZ6 was probably the best bike I could have ever bought for myself, because, you know, uber reliable, cheap to run, cheap to maintain, fun when you wanted it to be fun, could carry X amount of luggage, and if you really wanted to, could carry, oh my god, people, please, for the love of Jesus, I will not be staying behind them. You know, could do everything you'd want a bike to do while still commuting on a daily basis and being good on fuel. So like, if your chief goal is to have a bike that's a good commuter, you need to look at that. Why it's so important is, for instance, if you went and you wanted a bike 90% for track, you know, and you were my height and weight, and you said, well, Michael uses the Z900RS, I'm going to get one of those, and then you bought it, you'd be really disappointed, because for a 90% track bike, this is not the bike for you. For a bike that is 90% street bike, and that you don't want to do any like really long distance touring on, this would be a great bike. You know, a lot of things come into play, and I'll list my personal top ones that I look at. Is I don't care about fuel economy, because, you know, that's not why I buy bikes. I don't buy bikes to be frugal machines. However, one thing that is actually really important is fuel range. If you have a little small tank, it would get really annoying really quickly if you're traveling with people who have really big tanks. And, you know, you'll always have someone in the group who needs to stop more often than other people. It's not personally a problem for me, but it is something. If, you know, if for instance your use case is touring, fuel range has to be up there, and that's one of the things I look at. For instance, my commute is 120 miles a day. If I had a bike that couldn't do 120 miles, so I couldn't just fill up near home every day, that would get really annoying. Or in the morning before I went or whatever. If you're stopping like in the morning to get fuel, and then on the way home, and then you know you're going to have to stop somewhere else in between, if you're doing like, you know, two trips like Monday, Tuesday, that would get really frustrating really quickly. So that's why you need to break down, you know, what your use case is. If it's touring, fuel range is going to be really important, so is comfort. You know, everything else kind of comes secondary. You're like, if you're okay, so touring, fuel range, comfort, and carrying luggage. If you're going to be carrying two people, obviously the ability to comfortably carry a second person is also going to be really important. You know, then you have your kind of your secondary things though that kind of do come into every bike. Looks, obviously. Sound, obviously. Everyone kind of cares about how their bike sounds and looks. Some people don't though. Some people don't care if they have a bike that sounds like a sewing machine. But in general, most people care about the looks and the sound. And again, that's something you need to define for yourself. And looks are subjective. Some people love how, you know, like the, for instance, the Z900, just not the RS looks. I personally, I'm not a fan of how that bike looks at all. Like, you just know. Is it faster than this? Sure, it's lots of things, but there's not a hope I would get that over this, for instance, just because this one looks so much better. And looks obviously played a part in me, for like my fun street and track bike. And again, then it's like another big thing that should come into play is, are you going to do a lot of the work on it yourself? I change my own tires, I do all of my own major servicing and, you know, minor servicing. I do everything myself on my bikes. I literally haven't brought a bike to an American garage for anything except my safety inspection, which I have to bring for them. I'd do it myself if I could. But that's something that you need to also factor in, because if you're going to go buy a used bike, you need to be prepared to put either the time or the money into it. And I'll put a link up there for the video that we did, kind of breaking that down with a good friend of mine, Rafe, when he bought an older V-Strom. He came down to me, he paid for all the parts, and we did all the work together. And you know, that will kind of put into context of how much money you'd be looking to spend. And what we didn't even include in that video for him is like the cost of the tools that I have. You know, I've built them up over time. You know, like whatever about the tools, you also have the knowledge and whatever else, which is, again, something you can absolutely learn. Honestly, I don't know why people don't learn more of this stuff from YouTube. It's where I learned a lot of stuff, and just by trial and error. But again, that's another big part. So like, you need to identify your use case, and then you need to identify, are you going to do the work yourself, or are you going to bring it to a shop? Because again, that would mean you can go back in the years a bit and buy an older bike that sure saves you money up front, but you're going to need to put work into, or B, you know, go look at something in a dealer that is going to have a warranty. Those are two critical things. Or, you know, if you live in a country where people who work on bikes are cheaper or whatever, or they're more affordable, or you can just afford it, then buy whatever you want and give work to your local shops, because I know they would appreciate it. The good ones, if they complain about it, you probably didn't get a good one. I personally would not bring work to someone who just whinged at me all the time. But that's just me. You know, then it's going to be another thing that does come into play that a lot of people don't really think about, is kind of what your friends are doing. Because, I mean, in NC, I don't really ride with a lot of people in North Carolina. I ride with a lot of people, a lot of friends who live outside of North Carolina. And, you know, thankfully, even the friends who have big touring cruisers, when you like to tour and your friends like to tour, the V-Strom works perfectly well. This would work perfectly well, because I kind of have, you know, normal friends. If your friends are all absolute head cases who want to go out in a sports bike on the highway every night and just do top speed runs, personally, that's not something I would do. But if that's what all your friends are doing and what you're going to want to do, number one, I'd advise against it, because especially if it's like a first bike, that's a recipe for disaster. And I don't mean like a little disaster, I mean like a big disaster. We won't get into the big disaster. I'm sure you can put one and two together yourself. So that's something else you really need to identify, is like, are you going to use it? You know, if you say you want it for commuting, but then it gets a little bit cold like today and you leave it in the garage, was there a point in you buying it? Or if, you know, you get it to ride with your friends, but then you realize that riding with your friends is absolutely terrifying, are you really going to do it? You know, if you get it for touring, but then you realize you don't like the discomfort of when the weather isn't perfect, are you going to use it? You need to be honest with yourself in these things, because bikes are getting more and more expensive. And, you know, that's something that I think you need to be, you're going to actually have to use it. You know, if you buy something that is a big drain on your wallet, you're going to end up hating it if you're not using it. That's just my opinion. And yes, that is ice. It is quite cold. Such is life. Bike needs a run. Oh, that does not look good. That looks like someone did not mean to do that. That is definitely an unintentional. Oh dear. Okay, there's no one in it. There's already tape around it, so it's okay. was crazy. Someone just stopped and I think she was saying I'm looking in it. It's like, why are you looking in it, huh? Is it yours? Dodgy, dodgy, dodgy. I'm leaving. I want nothing to do with that. Yeah, I hope the driver of said van is okay though. That looked like it was a nasty one. Speaking of which, if we've any, you know, viewers over in the LA region which has been affected by all the fires, I hope you're all okay. Well, I hope everyone there is okay. But yeah, I really hope you didn't lose your houses. I think I feel absolutely awful for anyone who's lost a house. It's just I couldn't even imagine. It's just awful. This bike is fast. But yeah, so like, look at your use case. Are you going to do the work or not? Your friends group, and then your own comfort about, you know, tackling these things. And one of the most important things that no one really talks about, my friend Hippo Drones talks about it quite a lot. You know, he'll always say there's no bad riding weather, there's only bad riding gear, and he is 100% correct. Because, you know, me personally, I was layering up. I was going out in clothes for a while until I bought this jacket that really I just was too cold, and then you get something that's actually windproof, and all of a sudden lower temperatures don't become a problem. And that's because of wind chill. If you look, you can Google it, I'll throw it up on screen. There's like a wind chill factor that, depending on what speed you're going, it gets, you know, the perceived temperature is colder and colder and colder. Look at all the cows! Oh, nice. The perceived temperature is colder and colder and colder, and that's something that I think a lot of people don't really realize, that if you're like riding to work and it's 40 American degrees out, you know, your actual real feel is like 23, which is below freezing, which is cold. As someone who's ridden to work in that weather, I'll tell you, it doesn't matter how good your gear is, you still do feel the cold, right? Heated grips help, good gloves help, like these ones, winter gloves, good jacket obviously, underlayers help, all that stuff helps, but it is still cold. So, you know, you do, anyway, the whole point of that was you have to invest in gear. I feel like a lot of people go after the bike. A little bit of brake up the hill. That was fun. A lot of people go after the bike and they forget about the gear. You know, some of the best advice I was given when I was starting to ride was from my uncle, who told me, you know, go buy the gear first and then get the bike. Get the gear so it's in your pocket. You've already paid for. You don't buy the bike and immediately want to go riding the bike. Buy the gear. Buy a good helmet, buy good gloves, buy good boots, pants, jacket, you know, make sure that you're well set up. Toaster, my wife, who now rides the bike, before we ever put her on bikes, she actually has nicer gear than I do, because obviously she's more important to me than I am to me. And that's something that is also like critically important though, is you do have to make sure that you're kitted out well for yourself, because it is something that's very easy to neglect, you know, if you go ahead and get other things first. It's easy to then neglect getting good gear. So that's kind of the other thing. And while this is a diatribe about the best bike, all of these things factor into what make bikes fun to ride. If you're miserable and cold, or you don't really have anywhere to ride the bike or friends to ride the bike with, or you know, you actually didn't really have anything to use it for and you prefer driving your car, it doesn't matter how good the bike is, you're not going to like it. You know, I point at the likes of what's the gentleman's name, True Taken on YouTube. I have for years coveted the Kawasaki H2. It's a bike I would love to own one day, but I'm not going to lie to myself. I know that there's a reason I have not ever even attempted to buy a H2, is because I don't have a use for it. I don't like going fast in straight lines in public roads, especially not since I'm on a visa here. I don't want to get arrested and deported. And you know, my license is very important to me. My freedom to go around is very important to me. So I wouldn't have a use for it. But it's even like I saw a video where he was talking about his H2 and why he doesn't ride it much, and it's because you really can't. There's not anywhere for that. It's a pity there's not, like, you know, tracks that have like a, you know, a mile long strip or something that you could do roll racing on or something. If I ever win the lottery, I'll open something like that so people can use these things, but you know, even then insurance again ruins things. But either way, that's why, you know, I'm very honest with myself about the power that I'm actually going to use on the street. The track is a different thing altogether, and that's why, you know, I've shifted more to doing, you know, actual track bikes rather than street and track bike, for instance, because you can have a lot more fun on a bike that's set up just for the track than for the street. So, and I'll be honest, you know, I wasn't honest enough with myself going into that. You know, when I bought this, I was thinking it was going to be really fun for the street and track, and it is, but unfortunately I could never get it out of my head that I wanted to go faster. I wanted to be competitive with people, even though they didn't know I was competing with them. That is something that did actually come into my brain, and I wanted to be, you know, competitive, even time-wise, with my friends. And so, you know, that's something that you have to be honest with yourself about. And if you get all of that buttoned down, you get your use case, you get your, you know, your gear and your friends and what you want to use it for, and are you going to work on it yourself, and etc. You get all that buttoned down. At that point, you can pick what's going to be the best bike for you. Because here's the thing about modern bikes, right? And it's funny because you'll always have someone nitpick something. Like, for instance, I did the same thing. I nitpicked something with this bike. I still went and bought one because it was very fixable. All modern bikes are pretty bloody good. All of them. You would genuinely be hard pressed to find a modern bike that comes with a warranty that's not going to do what you want it to do. Sure, some new releases are going to have one or two problems, but if they're under warranty, that's the whole point of warranty. It's the manufacturer accepting, hey, there's some risks with you buying this, but we'll fix it. That's literally the purpose. And I never understand why people get irate, like really up in arms about things. Like, okay, certain things are oversights that should have been addressed, you know, before a bike was released. But you're always going to have problems. At the end of the day, it's humans designing them. Oh, look at the ice on top of the water. That's cool. It's humans designing them. It's humans building them. You're going to have issues. But if you're honest with yourself and you identify everything I've named out, you'll be able to buy a bike, pick a bike that will work really, really well for what you actually want, and you'll be able to enjoy it for years. And that's purely, you know, that's what it boils down to. If your whole friend group ride Harleys and you've always lusted after a Harley, if you go and buy a Honda CB500X, you might like it, but it's never going to be the thing that you really actually want. And that's just how life is. That's how the human brain is, you know. I have always been more of a Japanese bike person. What I really want is sports bikes. I love sports bikes. I love how they look, love how they ride, love how they sound. But at the end of the day, I don't currently own a really fast one, and that's because I don't really have anywhere to use it, especially around here. So it's all straight, boring roads. And that's why something like this works. It is what it is. Now, in saying all of that, to answer the question I'm often asked on this bike, do I recommend this bike for a tall rider? Yes. I think, provided you do the couple of modifications I've done to, like, suspension and whatever else, this bike is a fantastic option for a tall rider. Is it a good option for a beginner? No. The person I bought this bike off was actually a beginner, and that's why he sold it, because it just wasn't suitable. It doesn't behave well enough in a lot of areas that you know, would suit a beginner. I think any of Honda's 500cc engine options are great beginner bikes, because they're not too little that you won't be able to use them for a long time, and they're not too much that you're gonna, you know, really get yourself into trouble quickly. You know, the same as the Ninja 400 class, the Ninja 500 class, the new one, they're all great options. And that's what I personally would recommend to a lot of people, is anything like that to begin on. You know, I know Harley do a good deal where if you buy a bike from them, they'll even put you through the rider's course over here. like, I think a lot of those bikes are heavier, but they're also lower to the ground. So like if you want like a Nightster or something, that makes sense. Don't get a Sportster S as a first bike. It's too fast. It's too fast, too heavy. Whereas the Nightster S, I think, is a good. It's a better in between. And that's the thing why I never recommend one be all and end all, like first bike or whatever. Like, this is the bike that everyone's gonna love. Anyone can ride it. They exist. There are bikes that are good options as a beginner for everyone. Honda Rebel 500, Honda Rebel 300, Ninja 400, CB 500X. All of those are all really good beginner bikes. The MT-03, great beginner bike. Largely, honestly, the MT-07. The MT-07 it's a more advanced beginner bike, say. Like, it can be very fast, but at the same time, it's a pretty well-mannered bike. The one I've ridden anyway. So, yeah, I can't give you an option for the best bike. The best bike of the year, the best bike of anything, because they're too varied. Bikes aren't a one-fits-all thing anymore. They weren't ever really a one-thing-fits-all. But certainly now in the modern day, they're so far away from like a one-bike-fits-all. Little squirrel hopping across the road. That I think it's disingenuous for people to say. And I haven't seen any video that says this is the one bike. But if it exists, I'm not intentionally trying to upset people by saying they're disingenuous, but I do think it's a disingenuous thing to do by suggesting that that is the be-all end-all, because I think that's very difficult, if not impossible, to do. So yeah, that's just my opinion on the matter. I think you really need to identify all those things, and then you can pick a bike that will be the best for you. And, you know, unfortunately, bikes are also trial and error. You'll buy some that you don't like. I've been lucky that I've never bought a bike that I have not liked riding. But I have a problem, is I like literally all bikes. Some people won't. But all I'll say is, you know, go to a dealership, sit on bikes, sit on your friends' bikes, see what's comfortable for you to start out. See what you can actually manage with your feet down or whatever else, and have the bike between your legs. That is a huge thing. If you're scared of dropping a bike all the time, if the bike feels like it's too heavy all the time for you, you're not going to have fun straight off the bat. And that's a really, really important thing, is having fun. Please remember to have fun. That's what, you know, one of the things bikes are all about, is having fun, whether it's on the way to work, whether it's touring with your friends, or whether it's just running down to the shop to buy an old bit of bread. Having fun is so important on bikes. And like I said, you won't have fun if you're doing this with your bike and you're like, oh God, I need someone to come catch it for me. Have something that is easier for you to manage, and you'll have a lot more fun. With that said, that's all I have to say. If you've watched, thank you very much for watching. As always, a massive thank you to all of my patrons. If you have any questions for me, please do leave them in the comments. I will be able to help you with like specific bike questions, whether it's, you know, will this fit me size-wise, weight-wise, is this easy to work on, whatever else. I've worked on a lot of bikes over the years, and I might be able to help you there. So let me know in a comment, and hopefully I can help you. And yeah, until next time, thank you again for watching. Adios. Outro crew, what do you think of Clayton? I kind of like Clayton because of some older buildings, especially around here. Like, that house is really cool. It's like the perfect size house with a big garage. I don't want a big house. I never want a big house. There's too much to look after. And I don't spend enough time in the house, so, you know. And I don't want children. So I don't need a big house. I need a big garage. That's what I need. But yeah, what do you think of Clayton, Outro crew? Would you come visit Clayton and have a coffee with me? Let me know. Bye, Outro crew.